You open your eyes slowly. The smell is strong, a mixture of smoke, burnt bread, and the sour odor of filth accumulated in the streets. The air is dense, heavy, almost tangible. There are screams in the distance, screams that mingle with the creak of carts and the metallic sound of swords clashing against shields. You don't immediately understand what is happening, but you know that something pulses in that atmosphere like an invisible electric current. Something bigger than you, bigger than everyone there. You try to take a deep breath, but the air is impregnated with stone dust and soot from torches that light the narrow alleys. Your throat scratches. Your eyes water. Is it still night, or perhaps dawn? The light is timid, filtered through the heavy clouds that cover the sky. The sounds seem more alive than the light itself. Children cry. Men argue loudly. A crowd walks, pushing each other through uneven cobblestone streets. You are not in an ordinary place. It is not a distant village nor a quiet town. It is a beating heart, a crossroads where the destiny of millions of people meets. The wind carries with it the sound of bells ringing from a distant cathedral, mixed with the echo of footsteps running across damp stones. You feel the cold run through your body, a cold that comes not only from the weather, but from the uncertainty that hangs in the air. Your body is small. You still have no notion of the size of the world, but you feel that something different surrounds you. Around you, the stone walls are high, almost suffocating. Faded flags hang from balconies. Old clothes sway in the wind, stretched across ropes that span the alleys. You don't yet understand the symbols, the colors, nor the reason for the raised voices, but you feel the tension. The city seems to breathe with you, a hurried, anxious breathing, charged with urgency. Suddenly, a bang. A dry, distant sound, but enough to make everyone around you turn at once. There is running. You shrink instinctively against a cold stone wall. People hurry by, carrying torches, bags, baskets with crushed loaves of bread. A group of men raises hastily made posters, scribbled in charcoal with phrases you cannot read, but that seem to shout with the same force as their voices. You were born in the midst of chaos. Today is the day you open your eyes to the world, and the world is not calm, it is not gentle, it is not welcoming. It is noisy, conflictive, restless. As your eyes still try to focus on the crowd, you feel a rough hand grip your arm. A weary but firm face bends before you. The voice is low, almost a whisper. Don't look back. Come. You obey without thinking. You are led through the confusion, weaving between bodies that argue, push, shout words of order. The ground is wet. It is not just rainwater. Small, dark stains spread between the stones. You don't want to imagine what they are. The shouts are clearer now, words repeated in unison, words that carry hatred, hope, fury, words that echo like thunder between stone buildings. A bell tolls once more, loud, as if announcing a decisive moment. People raise their fists, others carry sickles, knives, any object that can be turned into a weapon. The air vibrates with the energy of a people who will no longer accept silence, who will no longer accept obedience. You don't fully understand, but you realize something. There is no turning back. The world in which you were born is cracked, split in half, and you will have to learn to live upon the ruins. The faces around you are intense. There's anger in their eyes, but also hope. The gaze of those who believe everything can change in an instant, that life can be torn from the hands of the powerful and returned to those who never had anything. It is a fire that burns in their eyes and warms the cold morning air. You now perceive the size of the city. The streets seem endless. The buildings are tall but old and carry the scars of decades of neglect. The squares fill with people who no longer fit into their own destinies. The doors of bakeries are surrounded by endless lines of the hungry, and each face, each voice, each step seems tied to the same invisible thread, the promise of change. The hand that guided you lets go of your arm. You are alone now, lost in the middle of that human mass. But somehow, you do not feel fear. You feel you are part of it, that you belong to that current dragging everyone in the same direction. The sky, covered with clouds, seems to weigh upon everyone's shoulders, but the shouts cut through the weight like sharp blades. There is an energy in the air that no thunder could silence. You feel your heart beating faster, as if it wants to match the rhythm of the crowd. A man climbs onto a wooden crate. The crowd falls silent for a moment. His voice echoes, firm, vibrant. He speaks of freedom, of equality, of a new time. Each word seems to set people's hearts on fire. Each sentence is a blow against the invisible chains that had kept everyone silent. You don't understand everything, but you understand enough. This is the beginning of something immense, something that will cross your life and that of everyone here. The world you belong to will not be the same. The old structures are crumbling, and you are in the middle of them, breathing the dust that rises as everything collapses. The man continues to speak. The crowd responds in chorus. Fists rise again. Someone begins to sing a strange, strong melody, almost a prayer. Others join in. Soon the entire square vibrates in unison, as if the city itself had found its voice. And as you watch, you feel a certainty invade your chest. You were born in a time when there is no room for neutrality. You will have to choose. You will have to live. You will have to fight, one way or another. The bell tolls again. The crowd advances. And you, lost and yet part of it all, take the first step into a world that will never be the same. You were born in the city where fury mixes with hope. You were born in the center of a storm that will forever change the history of humanity. You were born in Paris. You were born in the time of the revolution.
You are a few years old now. You are no longer just a lost gaze in the middle of the crowd. You have grown up hearing the echoes of that voice that inflamed the people, the bell that rang like an iron heart atop the city, and the songs that arose like war cries disguised as hymns. Paris has become your world, and this world is not just made of stones, smoke, and hunger. It is made of ideas. The streets you walk every day are more than paths of stone. They are veins pulsing with a feverish city. Every corner brings a new discussion. Every tavern turns into a battlefield where one does not fight with swords, but with words. Men with pale, thin, and exhausted faces speak of freedom with the same intensity as they would about bread. Women, once invisible in public conversations, now shout in markets and squares demanding justice. Even children, like you, learn early words that echo everywhere: equality, fraternity, revolution. You feel the weight of the era in the smells and sounds. The smell of fresh bread is rare, and when it exists, it does not last long. Lines form from dawn at the bakeries, and it is not uncommon for baskets to be empty before it is your turn. The more constant smell is that of filth flowing through open sewers, mixed with torch smoke, burnt grease from improvised cauldrons in the streets, and the sweat of crowded bodies. The houses, with cold stone and damp walls, seem to shrink in the face of the fury growing outside. Balconies adorned with expensive tapestries, a sign of the aristocracy, are watched with resentment by the eyes of the people. You realize there are two cities within the same Paris, that of the palaces, golden, shining with endless banquets, and that of the people, marked by scarcity and despair. This division is like an open wound, visible in every street, in every glance, in every sigh. The cafes bustle. You are still too young to sit at a table and discuss as men do, but you listen from the door, spying. There, words are sharper than blades. Men in worn coats, holding sheets of newspapers stained with fresh ink, argue until they lose their voices. Names begin to appear in your life as if they were characters larger than any king. Robespierre, Marat, Danton. They speak of them as heroes or as monsters, depending on who listens. But for you, still a child, they are only echoes of a world roaring in transformation. As you grow, you understand more. The newspapers, printed on cheap sheets, circulate from hand to hand, bringing not only news, but also denunciations, accusations, inflaming tempers even more. Every printed word seems like a spark thrown on dry straw, and there is no straw drier than the empty stomachs of the people. You discover that what happened on the day you were born, those screams, that advancing crowd, was only the beginning. The fall of a symbol, the Bastille, a prison of stone and iron, fell before the popular fury. The people did not just take up arms and free prisoners. They claimed for themselves the right to challenge kings. Since then, every street in Paris seems to live to the rhythm of a storm that never ends. The king still exists. Louis, with his heavy crown and distant gaze, remains at Versailles. But the distance between him and the people is not just geographical. It is an abyss. While you and everyone around you count coins to buy a piece of hard bread, the palace overflows with luxury. This does not go unnoticed. Every rumor of banquets, every story about embroidered dresses and parties with expensive wine is like salt thrown into the city's open wound. And there is also a figure that hovers over all the murmurs: the Queen. Marie Antoinette, with her adorned hair and extravagant dresses, is the target of hatred. They say she never knew hunger. They say that upon hearing that the people had no bread, she responded with disdain. Let them eat brioche. Perhaps it's just invented story. Perhaps it is true. It matters little. For the hungry people, the phrase is an insult etched into their hearts. You see this in your mother's eyes when she speaks of the Queen. You see it in the clenched fists of men when someone mentions her name. You see it in the low, murmured songs that carry the desire to overthrow not just the crown, but everything it represents. The city, despite the misery, vibrates with hope. It is not only hunger that moves the people, it is the promise of something new. You hear, even without fully understanding, that the world can change, that chains can be broken, that no one should ever be born destined to be a servant, while others are born to rule. At every corner, at every new proclamation pasted on the walls, you realize it is not just about food or taxes. It is about dignity, about a people who have learned to shout. And once they learn, there is no silencing them. But hope does not walk alone. Alongside it grows fear. Fear of the royal army, of the soldiers who still patrol certain streets, fear of spies who hide among the crowd to hear conversations and report, fear that in the end, nothing changes and that everything returns to how it was before. Still, Paris does not stop. On the contrary, Paris accelerates. It is as if the city had awakened from a deep sleep and now runs towards the unknown without looking back. Squares fill with speeches, streets become stages for marches, and houses once silent now echo heated debates through the night. You begin to understand that you live at a crossroads of history. It is not just the passing days, it is centuries breaking before your eyes. Every shout is a crack in the old world. Every raised fist is a promise of a new one. And in the midst of all this, you are growing. Your body gets used to the cold and hunger, but your mind feeds on the words that float in the air like sparks. Liberty, equality, fraternity. You do not just hear them, you feel them. At night, when silence tries to fall over the city, You still hear murmurs coming from taverns, alleys, and cafes. It is as if Paris never sleeps completely. There is always someone planning, conspiring, waiting for the next step. And deep down you know that next step will come. It is not a question of if, but of when. The revolution is no longer just a whisper. It is a roar growing louder. And you, like all who breathe the same heavy and vibrant air, will be swept along with it.
You wake up early, before the sun even warms the cold stones of the street. The noise of the city is already rising like a disordered chorus, voices calling out in the markets, carts creaking on the narrow sidewalks, dogs fighting over scraps of food, children running after anything that might distract their hunger. The smell that fills your small room is a mixture of smoke, burnt bread, and filth. Paris never smells of flowers, except in the gardens of the rich, and those are not for you. Your bed is a heap of straw tied with ropes, covered with a thick cloth. When you rise, the straw sticks to your clothes, but you no longer care. It would be worse to sleep in the open, like some neighbors who lost everything during recent raids. In a corner, your mother stirs a nearly empty pot. The soup from the night before, made of water and a few pieces of turnip, has been stretched until only a thin liquid remains. Still, she divides it into 2 bowls and places one before you. "Eat," she says, her voice firm, though her eyes betray her exhaustion. You obey. The taste is not pleasant, but it is what there is. Eating has ceased to be a pleasure. It has become survival. Outside, life pulses without pause. You step out, closing the worn wooden door that barely holds together. The narrow streets are always full of people. Vendors shout the prices of vegetables. Women argue loudly over who should be in power. Men debate politics as if every word were gunpowder. Children like you run barefoot, often in torn clothes, some begging, others stealing whatever they can. Today is a day to queue at the bakery. The nearest bakery already has a crowd formed before the doors open. You join the line carrying the small coin your mother gave you. Time seems to stand still as the smell of freshly baked bread awakens even more hunger. People argue, push, complain. When your turn finally comes, the breads have already diminished. You manage to get only one, small, with a hard crust. You hold it close to your chest as if it were a treasure. But it is not always like this. Often the bakery closes before you reach the counter. On those days, desperation is palpable. Shouts echo, protests spread, and it is not uncommon to see a crowd storm the place, grabbing whatever little remains from the shelves. You have witnessed this. You have seen women armed with kitchen knives, men with sticks and stones, all demanding bread. Not for luxury, but because without it, there is no tomorrow. After the line, you wander the streets. Almost always you find some group gathered in front of a freshly pasted poster. It is a revolutionary pamphlet full of phrases that inflame the crowd. You cannot read well, but someone always offers to read it aloud. "Citizens, unite!" shouts a man, his voice firm. "Tyranny will not survive the power of the people." And the crowd applauds, raises their fists, repeats in chorus. You, caught up, shout along, even without understanding every word. Taverns are also a constant part of life. You are too young to drink, but you pass by and observe. From inside comes the strong smell of cheap wine mixed with the sweat of men who argue. Inside, it is not rare for words to turn into fights. Tables are overturned, glasses break, fists rise. And yet each tavern is a cauldron of ideas. Many say it is there that the revolution is organized, between one sip and another. As the afternoon falls, you help your mother carry water from the well to the house. It is heavy, but there is no choice. Meanwhile, on the streets you hear drums. Soldiers march, uniformed, trying to impose an order that no longer exists. The people watch them with hatred and suspicion. Some shout insults. Others remain silent, fearing reprisal. You feel the tension in the air. It takes only a spark for violence to erupt. Sometimes that spark comes. You have seen groups of citizens armed with improvised spears and old swords confront patrols. The sound of clashing weapons echoes through the night, mixed with screams. The next day, bodies may be found in alleys, covered only with dirty cloths. The city lives in constant alert. Despite this, there are moments of strange joy. In the squares, you see groups singing revolutionary hymns, songs that speak of freedom, of a just future, of equality. The music resonates loudly, and even the hungry rise to sing. It is in these moments that you feel all of Paris breathing as a single body, that despite hunger and fear, there exists an invisible force keeping everyone upright: hope. At night, at home, the lamplight barely illuminates anything. Your mother sews worn clothes, trying to make them last longer. You talk quietly, but the sound of the city never disappears. Shouts, footsteps, drums, bells. Sometimes the calm is broken by distant gunfire. You lie down, close your eyes, but it takes a while to sleep. Fear and excitement mix in your chest. And when you finally sleep, you dream. You dream of tables full of food, of laughter instead of screams, of clean streets and children running free. But you also dream of crowds, of flags, of a people marching united. Because even in your dreams, the revolution does not let you rest. Everyday life in Paris is not only made of small acts of survival. It is made of the awareness that every step, every breadline, every poster read, every song sung is intertwined with something much greater. You feel, even without fully comprehending, that what you live is not only your life, it is the life of an entire generation. And as you settle on the hard straw, hearing the echoes of the city that never sleeps, you know tomorrow will be the same. Hunger, lines, shouts, hopes. But you also know deep down that with each new day, Paris moves closer to an inevitable destiny. A destiny that is not only the city's, but yours as well.
Waking up early in Paris has become a habit, but today feels different. The noise is not the usual dragging of carts or the shouts of vendors. It is a more intense, rhythmic sound, like a wave growing without end. You rise from the straw, rub your still heavy eyes, and realize the air is thick, almost vibrating. The entire city seems to be breathing at once, and suddenly shouting together. When you open the wooden door, what you see is a crowd surging like a mighty river, men and women together, children running alongside, all moving toward the heart of the city. Many carry sticks, sickles, pots, even kitchen knives raised as improvised weapons. Others hoist colorful flags, hastily painted pieces of cloth with words you do not fully understand but recognize: liberté. Someone grabs your arm. It's a neighbor, breathless, eyes shining with excitement. Come, today we will change France. You do not know exactly where you are going, but your feet move. The current of the crowd is impossible to resist. The narrow streets fill with echoing voices, and the sound of footsteps blends with the beating of drums. The people do not walk, they march. Soon you arrive before an immense structure, with stone towers and walls that seem to touch the sky. You have heard of it, the Bastille. To many, it is merely a prison. To others, a symbol of tyranny. Today, for this mass of furious citizens, it is the target of revolt. The shouts grow louder. Some men attempt to negotiate, others advance without hesitation. Smoke fills the air as the first shots are fired. The explosions make you flinch. People run, some fall, others keep pushing forward. The ground trembles beneath your feet. You find yourself trapped between bodies surging ahead. There is no escape. A man next to you holds a torch aloft as if it were a sword. Another pounds the gate with an iron bar. The entire crowd shouts in unison, "À bas la Bastille!" The sound is deafening. With each passing second, more people arrive. The heat of the torches, the smell of gunpowder, the metallic taste of fear in your mouth, everything floods your senses. Your legs shake, but you also feel something new. A fire in your chest, a feeling that you are part of something that will change the world. Then, the impossible happens. The gate gives way, and the crowd floods in. The clang of iron against stone echoes like thunder. You are carried inside, through dark corridors and damp walls. The air smells of mold and blood. Cries echo from all directions. Some search for weapons, others free prisoners, others simply loot, tearing down doors, destroying furniture. You watch in shock. The guards try to resist but are overwhelmed. Shots ring out, fire spreads. The Bastille, a centuries-old symbol of royal power, is now taken by the people. The floor is littered with debris and bodies. The sound of triumph bursts in cries of victory. You see something you will never forget. The head of the prison governor, lifted on a spear, paraded through the streets as a grim trophy. The crowd applauds, sings, dances amidst the blood. A mixture of euphoria and horror dominates the air. You do not know whether to cheer in joy or hide in fear. On the way back, all of Paris seems changed. People embrace, cry, sing. Improvised hymns, songs of freedom fill the streets. The people believe this is the start of a new era. You believe it too, or at least want to. After all, you were there. You saw the Bastille fall. But with hope comes doubt. If the prison fell today, what will fall tomorrow? Palaces? Kings? The very order of the world? In the days that follow, the city does not return to normal. The atmosphere is one of constant boiling. New leaders emerge, speeches inflame the squares, clandestine newspapers circulate like wildfire. Every corner of Paris seems an improvised assembly. The people demand bread, but also justice, freedom, equality. And you, still only a young figure lost in the crowd, feel part of this collective force. You now know that the impossible can happen, that the highest walls can fall before common hands. Still, fear persists. Every corner may hide an execution. Every night may bring new flames. Revolution is not only flags and hymns, it is also blood, hunger, vengeance. You realize this when you see neighbors accused of treason dragged through the streets, judged without mercy. The same people who shout for freedom also raise knives against those considered enemies. And it is in this crossfire that you live. Neither child nor adult, only a body thrown into the whirlwind of history. That night, as you lie again on the straw, the sound of Paris is different. It is not just cries of hunger, but songs of victory. It is not only the creak of carts, but the echo of revolutionary drums. You close your eyes and feel in your chest the heartbeat not only of yourself, but of an entire city. Because today you did not live just another day. You lived the day the world changed. And tomorrow, no one knows what will come.
You wake up at dawn, but the city is no longer the same. The sound that reaches your window is not just the usual creak of carts carrying bread or children chasing chickens through the alleys. It is the sound of a city in convulsion. Paris beats like a racing heart, pulsing in every corner. The smell of smoke still lingers in the air, mixed with the aroma of freshly baked bread from makeshift ovens. But what dominates your senses is something else. The certainty that nothing will ever be the same again. The fall of the Bastille was not just an event. It was a breaking point, a tear in history. And you were there, among the thousands who shouted against its walls. This means that now, whether you like it or not, your life belongs to something bigger than itself. In the days that follow, Paris becomes one huge square. Men and women argue on every corner. Improvised preachers climb barrels to speak. Pamphlet newspapers circulate from hand to hand, and everyone speaks the same word with almost religious fervor: liberty. You hear this word so many times that it becomes part of you, as if it had always existed. But along with liberty also comes fury. The people demand justice, and the justice of the crowd is swift, cruel, and almost always without trial. You see this with your own eyes: neighbors accused of treason, priests pursued, nobles hunted like animals. The same arms that raised flags now wield blades. And you? You are in the middle, torn between fear and hope. Part of you rejoices when you hear that France will finally no longer be ruled by an absolute king, but another curls inward when you see heads rolling on the guillotine, displayed before the crowd as spectacle. Everyday life, once marked by hunger and misery, changes in a strange way. There are days when bread is plentiful, as if the revolution had miraculously redistributed resources. But there are also days when hunger is even more cruel, because the granaries cannot keep up with the pace of dreams. Still, people prefer to believe. It is better to go hungry believing that one is fighting for a new future than to resign oneself to the misery of the past. You find yourself growing alongside the revolution. Your eyes, once accustomed to the silence of the streets, are now accustomed to the constant noise of assemblies. Your hands, once used to helping your mother carry water, now hold pamphlets, torches, or even a stone ready to be thrown at soldiers who still defend the old regime. The king still exists for now, but he is no longer the same. The people themselves now watch him, control him, limit him. The monarchy seems only a ghost of what it once was, and you witness this as one watches a play. First the king is respected, then tolerated, and finally ridiculed. The fury speeches echo through Paris. Names like Robespierre, Danton, and Marat begin to become part of your life. Even if you do not understand all the ideas, you do not understand constitutions or systems of government, but you understand hunger, fear, the look of your mother when she says that perhaps, just perhaps, your future could be different. But the revolution does not forgive innocence. It demands blood. And you, even so young, realize this. Passing by the guillotine, you see people applauding executions as if they were festivities. Children play at imitating the motion of the blade descending, laughing as if it were only a game. You feel your stomach churn, but you say nothing. Because there amid that crowd, he who is silent survives. Time passes, and you no longer know whether you are counting days, months, or years. The revolution is a river that never stops flowing. First came the fall of the Bastille, then the Declaration of Rights. Later, the king's failed escape. In each episode, your life is carried along like a fragile little boat in the current. You wonder, would you have survived if you had been born in another era? Perhaps you would have been just an invisible peasant, doomed to die of hunger and silence. Perhaps you would have lived a short life, never witnessing anything beyond daily misery. But here, now, you see the world changing before your eyes. You are part of it, whether you wanted to or not. And looking back, you realize something. Living in Paris during the French Revolution is not just surviving chaos. It is feeling the weight of history in every breath. It is waking up every day without knowing if there will be bread or a guillotine, hope or massacre. It is being part of a crowd that even amid tears and blood dares to shout that a new world is possible. What happens to you? Perhaps you survive, perhaps not. Perhaps you are carried away by the same crowd you now call brothers. Perhaps you see the end of the king and the birth of a republic. Perhaps you carry scars that will never heal. But one thing is certain, you will never forget. Because being born in times of revolution is to live every moment as if it were your last. It is learning that history is made not only by kings and generals, but also by ordinary people, like you. And now, imagining the world you live in today, one question lingers. Were we born in the right time? Do we have the courage to face what must change? Or is revolution, with all its fury and hope, only possible when hunger is as great as fear? You close your eyes. The sound of Paris echoes in the memory. Shouts, drums, the fall of walls. And the final question remains, like a whisper crossing the centuries. If you had lived in Paris during the French Revolution, who would you have been?